like a lot of people around the marijuana world are kind of mad, you know, like we're looking at Colorado. If you're not in Colorado, you're probably pretty mad. Now, there's a few people that should be mad. There's people that are getting caught with marijuana in states where it's not legal. People running entrepreneurial activities in marijuana and getting caught in states where it's not legal and getting busted and doing time or having a record for it, because now in Colorado, you know, you see all these people getting successful and running marijuana businesses and booming the economy and blah blah blah. You know, there's a lot to it. Like, a lot of people should be mad about it. And then you have states like Michigan where we just can't figure out what happened with our budget. We can't budget things like fixing cities like Flint. We can't budget things like fixing the roads and the highways. We can't budget stuff like just basic stuff, you know, like trying to attract business opportunities for people to open new businesses or whatever, you know. But the bottom line is the taxes that were collected in Colorado, and then we've seen Oregon also collecting just tens of millions of dollars in taxes, like automatically, like the first 6 months of business. And with Colorado, they've collected so much taxes that they're doing great things with the money. They're giving people their money back when they try to pay taxes. They're fixing schools, they're building new schools, they're doing infrastructure projects. I mean, it's all good. But somehow the prohibitionists out there and the people that are the naysayers about full legalization, they always have things to say about Colorado. They always say, oh, Colorado didn't go so well, did it? You know, like there's all kinds of people crashing into each other because they're high driving, or, you know, little kids are smoking weed and eating edibles at a younger age. And you know, none of that can be further from the truth if you look at true statistics and the numbers will tell you that none of that's true. I mean, you know, kids going to the hospital because they ate a brownie that was laced with marijuana, it probably happened more before marijuana was even legal than it does now, believe it or not. You know, look the numbers up. It's, if nothing else, it's not a whole lot different. All right, so what we're looking at is, does Colorado citizens, what about them? What do they think? Are they happy or sad about this legalization? A lot of the negative spinning here is this buyer's remorse. Like, there's all these bad things that happen because of the legalization. Now, Colorado has a large subsector of the state. I think it's like the eastern northern part of the state that's pretty right-wing Republican-y, right, you know, red. And they don't like the legalized marijuana, but, you know, they're tolerating it and they're doing what they can to work with it. But as we're going to see with Pueblo County, a different story exists there. So anyway, let's get right into it. This is a article by The Cannabist, which I get a lot of stories from them because they are on the game. They're the ones that are on the forefront of writing these stories. If I had time to be a writer and was more on my ear to the ground more than I already am, I might write. But you know what? I don't write right now, and I rely on these great writers and these great publications. This is Ricardo Baca. So he says politicians and anti-pot groups are saying Colorado's have this buyer's remorse when it comes to legal marijuana, but a new poll finds the opposite is true. 9 states will be voting on recreational and medical marijuana this year, and Colorado seems to be like used by both sides as talking points or propaganda, for that matter. When they legalized it, it was 54.8 to 45. So when they passed their Amendment 64, it was over a landslide, basically. So, and then 3 years later, people still say they're pretty much would vote the same. I mean, you know, you get a lot of polls that coming out of Colorado that say that. Most of them. So let's say a majority of Colorado voters say legal cannabis has had a positive impact on the state and its economy, and would not support a repeal of Amendment 64 if it was offered this year. Matter of fact, according to a new poll commissioned by the Pro-Legalization Marijuana Policy Project and conducted by Democratic firm Public Policy Polling. Now, you might hear the Marijuana Policy Project a lot here on the Daily Dope Show because they are heavily invested and involved in legalizing marijuana across the country. They take a local approach to it, and they use local funds and local investors, and they figure out how to, reasonably pass local ordinances and laws, as well as statewide ballot measures that they've been behind and whatnot. Anyway, back to the story. Here's a quote from Mason Tvert, or Vert, just Vert, Mason Vert. I've been following him for a long time. He's the guy that basically got marijuana legal in Colorado through an initiative at the time that he basically called Safer Than Alcohol. So Safer Than Alcohol was basically the best, like, let's just say propaganda, if you will, for the people that wanted to legalize marijuana. Mason Tvert had that. He's been profiled and interviewed on mainstream media and, underground publications alike, because he's one of the most outspoken persons in the marijuana world over the last 40 years to actually break through to the masses with the message that basically the marijuana legalization movement has always said, safer than alcohol. It was always there on paper. He just amplified that, blowhorned it, microphoned it. He's single-handedly made the popular opinion on marijuana legalization in Colorado and wider than Colorado more accepted in the realm of thought that, hey, well, why is it illegal when alcohol is far more dangerous? So many reasons, but yet, why is marijuana illegal? If we don't know, we shouldn't put people in jail for smoking marijuana when it's not as dangerous as alcohol. Or there's a myriad of other talking points that you can, derive from that. And that's why he did so great at public speaking and whatnot, because he had that talking point and he had all the backups of it and the nuances that could apply to different people in different situations. So safer than alcohol. Anyway, back to the story. His quote is, "One of the best indicators of whether legalization has been successful is how the public feels about it. And clearly most Coloradans think it was the right decision and wouldn't want to change it." And in a poll, 51% of respondents said they would oppose measures to repeal 64, while 36 would support and 13 wasn't sure. We're going to keep going through poll numbers because that's what this article is all about. And I like it because, you're not going to find this on CNN, are you? Amendment 64's impact on Colorado. 47% said legal cannabis has been good for the state, while 39% said bad. 9% said it's had no real impact, and 6 weren't sure. So again, the people that said it was positive for the state overall, boom, more people by far said it was good for the state. How about the economy? Support was stronger for legalization when voters were asked about legal pot's impact on Colorado's economy, where 61% said the impact had been positive. 61%. That's an irrefutable blowout, because only 19% said it had been negative. 14% said there had been no impact, and 6% wasn't sure. But let's just rewind. 61% said that, hey, this had a positive impact on our economy, as opposed to just 19%, your typical right-wing uncle who didn't see anything but the same old. But they still said it had a negative impact. There's no negative impact on the economy. Unless you run prisons or whatever, there's no negative impact unless you're a drug cartel boss. Negative impact in Colorado, I can't see how there's even 19%, but there was. But 61% said positive on the economy. Listen to that, Michigan and all you other states that don't want to legalize recreational marijuana. Like Florida, you got people that say, ooh, like New Jersey's Chris Christie, where, oh, we don't want medical marijuana ever to be this slippery slope to full legalization, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Full legalization hasn't hurt nobody, except for the prison lobbyists and prison industry and whatever. I mean, it's given the police a lot more time to focus on real stuff going on that might be affecting people's, real crimes. So anyway, this poll contacted 629 registered voters. The margin of error response 3.9. Blah blah blah. There's a lot of folks trying to make it seem like the sky is falling in Colorado, or that voters regret their decision, says Tavert Mason. But this is yet another poll showing that they still support it. The polls have done nothing but show support for it, as you'll see later on. But anyway, Tavert is referencing the politicians and anti-legalization groups' rejection of Pueblo County's Measure 200, which would halt recreational marijuana sales and operations in one of Colorado's most 420-friendly counties if it passes in November's election. So in Pueblo County, they actually have a measure to ban recreational marijuana sales and operations in the whole county. Supporters of the repeal say retail cannabis has brought crime and transients to town. I would like to see them prove that. I would love to see that, because if you make marijuana illegal and there's a demand for it, then you automatically invite a black market to your town instantly. And it's proven, and it's a known fact. And the drug war is a failure. Prohibition of alcohol was a failure because of that same fact. When you prohibit a substance, instantly you create a black market for it, because the substance doesn't go away. The only thing that goes away is people that get locked up. The substance don't go away, and the demand don't go away, and the people that supply the demand don't go away. And the government knows that, and the police know that, and everybody knows that. The reason they don't want to stop all that is because they love to keep locking people up and lining their pockets with whatever locking people up does. A lot of these people are church people that oppose marijuana. You better believe it. I don't know what they got invested interest in it, but they're funding this just as much as the alcohol lobby, and they're not funding it with money. The church people are funding it with their people who are running local governments. So when you heard Bernie Sanders and his people say that the revolution has to be like, we got to get people on the ground level in local governments, blah, blah, blah. That's where we got to change a lot of things. Well, that's what he was talking about. When you got these churchy, Republican sheriffs and representatives in your local government, city council members and township hall leaders and such, they're looking out for the church's interests, and the church has more power than a lot of these lobbyists that throw millions and billions of dollars at it. How? Because they're right there making the decisions. If you don't have a voice there, then you're in trouble, man. They're in these little buildings right in your very town, making decisions that could put you in jail, or, this is, like they said, Pueblo County, one of the most 420 friendly counties in the state. Let's move on. All right, so basically they're saying that, supporters of the repeal say cannabis has brought crime and transients. Prove it is all I got to say about that. That's not even possible. Crime, the only crime now is if you rob somebody that's legitimately in the marijuana game. And that doesn't happen. I haven't heard a whole lot of that. Anyway, those fighting the repeal say legal weed has rejuvenated a depressed economy with jobs and a leadership role in one of America's fastest growing industries. So a lot of people started doing good and making money, being their own boss, and the economy started picking up because people like that were able to spend money. They had a lot of disposable income, and next thing you know it, somebody's not very happy about it. Who is that? Oh yeah, the local governments again. Who are they run by? Oh yeah, those church people that have more power than even lobbyists on K Street. They have more power than Wall Street bankers sometimes, just because of these little rules and laws and focuses on stuff that you don't need to focus on. This is Colorado. The whole state is booming They're doing things that no other state can do because they are booming their economy and their tax, be able to, the revenue collection, the amount of taxes that they're getting from this recreational marijuana is phenomenal, and it's creating all kinds of opportunities that this state never would have had without it. Not to mention tourism is up in Colorado even, man. It ain't like they was hurting for tourists before. Anyway, back to it. As I saw myself when I was there, quote, it is clear that many families and businesses in Colorado are having buyer's remorse after legalizing commercial marijuana, says Massachusetts Senator Jason Lewis. Now, he wrote that in response to a takeout on Pueblo's predicament in the Boston Globe. Massachusetts is also one of the places in November where you'll be able to vote to legalize recreational marijuana. Another 4 states will decide, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah. So what he did is he acted like when he was in Colorado, or he seen some kind of really bad results, buyer's remorse, families and businesses having buyer's remorse. I don't know who he's talking about, man. First of all, if you were a business that was already there, you weren't affected by the new businesses that popped up because of the marijuana. Because guess what? The people that smoke marijuana were already everywhere, and unless you ran like somewhere that sold really good munchies, your business just stayed the same. If you sold the good munchies, you probably seen a boom in business. Like everybody else around this marijuana business sees a boom. So I don't know what they're talking about, man. This guy's just spewing propaganda. Colorado town Manitou Springs faced a similar decision in 2014's midterm election when a group of passionate locals wanted the future of the town's retail cannabis facilities put to a vote. A strong majority voted against the measure and for recreational marijuana, and the town remains El Paso County's only outpost with retail pot sales. So some of these towns, probably just didn't even have anybody that cared about it enough to even open a dispensary or whatever place to sell weed. Go figure, there's always at least one town in a county, and in this case, El Paso County, you have Manitou Springs was the only place that had that, and they figured that the county was like, oh, who's these guys over here, these dirty stoners, let's just shut them down. But it didn't win. Because even though that probably just because mostly people in that county aren't into it, when you say, hey, we want to take away rights that you might otherwise have because the state gave you the right, but on the local level, we want to take that right away from you. It smells like the church is in it again. What's up with the church, man? I know the church has a heavy influence on local politics, and this sounds like the church once again. Back to the polls. A majority of polls that have asked Coloradans about potential buyer's remorse over legal cannabis have showed a continued support for Amendment 64. 9 months into legal sales, 55% of Colorado adults supported law, while 41% opposed it. That was an NBC News Marist poll. After a year of recreational sales, more than 90% of the respondents who voted in 2012 election of 64 said they would vote the same way, according to a Survey USA poll done by the Denver Post. In early 2015, a Quinnipiac University poll showed that 58% of respondents supported Amendment 64, while 38% opposed it. 58 for, 38 against. Sounds more like 60-40. They just didn't. It sounds so much like less supportive if you say 58-38. But let me just say let's just round it off and see what it sounds like. 60-40. That means fuck off. There's full support for this shit. So take your 58-38 and just fuck that off too, because that's just propaganda still trying to make it sound bad. And that's a Quinnipiac University poll. They have a reputation for doing these like mind control polls anyway. But moving along, so that we got a late 2015 Quinnipiac poll, similar acceptance. This time you have 55-41. Now you're trying to even chip away at what I just said and kind of numb it by saying, oh, we'll even go down to 55. Forget about 58. 55-41. Still the same thing. 41 opposed, just a little more. 55 still rounds to 60. So whatever. And in a poll, 53% said legal marijuana has been good for the state, while 39% said it had been bad. We know what those bad people say. They say that. They say that about anything. You know, they would say that about liquor. They probably drink it. I mean, who cares what they say? Anyway, an outlier poll always showed different results. And that would be the mid-2015 Smith-Johnson research for the sponsor Community Alliances for Drug-Free Youth. They float around from time to time to spend money on research and fake data and polls. You know, Smith-Johnson Research is just some small polling company that you hire when you really need to just like fake the shit out of a poll to try to make a point, or just mention it in an article and cite it like you did something. All right, and they found 51%, and this is mid-2015, Colorado respondents would vote against legalization at the time. Now, although that's the only poll of its kind and the only poll that came up with negative results in 2015, what you have here is almost every newspaper and mainstream media news outlet on TV, when they cite polls in Colorado, they still go with that one. They still use that one. Oh, buyer's remorse. Look at this. And they're breaking that out again. That's the way prohibition are. They always break out the same old tired rhetoric and talking points, and we call it reefer madness because sometimes they go so bold as to rewind it all the way back to like 1930s reefer madness, you know, and that's kind of what they're doing here. So then you have legalization opponent Kevin Sabet of Project SAM, which is Sensible Approach to Marijuana, I believe, don't quote me on that, but anyway, reference Smith-Johnson research poll to say we shouldn't be surprised that Colorado's are coming around to opposing legalization. That was earlier last year, like I said, mid last year, and Tavert comes back at him with, it's easy for opponents of legalization to put words into the mouths of Colorado voters. But the results actually let voters speak for themselves, and voters by and large would not want to go back to prohibition. Because that's essentially what they're always saying when they oppose legalization or when they're trying to say that it's been bad. What are you trying to say? Prohibition was better? Now you're criminalizing the youth when they get caught with marijuana. You're putting people, you're giving people records for distribution, for a supply and demand system that's been around for thousands of years. It's just, what are you trying to say? You're trying to say it's better to arrest people for their own good, for their own safety, than let them experiment with marijuana or let them use marijuana because you think it's bad. Although you can't prove it's bad, there's no proof it's bad. All the fucking evidence and the fucking research now proves it's medicine, proves it can't possibly harm you. It's the safest thing there is on the planet. Other than maybe if you could actually get a breath of fresh air somewhere, let me know if you can. Well, anyway, I'm going to wrap this shit up over here because, you know, I just kind of get mad when I hear these people talking shit about Colorado, because Colorado and the people in Colorado are all good. They have no extra problems. You don't see any crime because of the marijuana legalization. The statistics prove that the numbers don't lie. People don't use marijuana more that are underage because of the legalization. In fact, less. People are not using pharmaceutical drugs as much, painkillers and otherwise narcotic prescriptions as much because of legalized recreational marijuana. They don't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that less people are getting involved in drunk driving accidents. Instead, they want to say, oh, well, there's more people getting involved with wrecks that have marijuana in their system. Yeah, well, that's not the only thing they got in their system. Look at those statistics again. There's nobody on that list that was just smoking marijuana that got in any of those fatalities or caused a fatal accident. And you know there hasn't been. So Colorado, the statistics don't lie, and now the polls from the actual citizens of the state don't lie. And what I want to hear now is any excuse you got for not legalizing recreational marijuana everywhere. We need this. If you want to do something besides give illegal black market drug cartels and even I've heard the propaganda from the government saying that if you buy a dime bag of marijuana you're supporting Al Qaeda. No, that's not true. I've heard them say that if you buy marijuana that you're supporting the Mexican drug cartels. That's not true either. Bankers don't even want to do business with marijuana businesses that are legal in legal states where it's legal. They still don't want to do business with us. But yet they did business with HSBC, and HSBC laundered money for not only Al Qaeda but also the drug cartels. So you tell me what the fuck's going on, Colorado, to me it looks like they got a good thing going on. In Michigan they want to tax medical marijuana. What the fuck is even that? You don't tax medical marijuana, you don't tax medicine, period. And what you do is you legalize recreational marijuana and then you use that money for real good shit. Instead of, in Michigan, it would probably just get fucking pissed away to all the corrupt people in the government. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. So, I don't know. Well, maybe we're not there yet here in Michigan. Again, I'm going to end this one, but good for you, Colorado. And if anybody is a non-believer, just look into it, man. Or just go to Colorado. You'll see.